Let me admit something. I read the Brothers Karamazov cover to cover, all 900 pages of theological argument, family betrayal, and courtroom drama, and I walked away with my own private verdict. What I did not walk away with was any knowledge of what the great minds of history had said about it. I did not know that Freud called it the most magnificent novel ever written. I did not know that Einstein wept over it. I certainly did not know that many Russians, including Vladimir Nabokov, professed to hate it. It was only later, when I went looking for validation or argument, that I discovered this strange, almost schizophrenic afterlife of the novel, adored by the West as the summit of fiction, yet regarded by a significant portion of its own countrymen as turgid, ideologically suspect, and artistically messy. This essay is my attempt to understand that paradox and to invite you, the reader, to add your own voice to the fray. While the West has long embraced the Brothers Karamazov as a cornerstone of world literature, evidence suggests a more complicated relationship with the novel in its homeland. Quantitative data reveals a sharp decline in mentions of Dostoevsky relative to his high rank in Western assessments among the Russian internet segment, and qualitative reviews often describe the book as very wordy in a bad way, turgid, undisciplined, prolix. It isn't a matter of simple dislike, but a profound cultural dissonance. From the moment of its publication, the novel captivated some of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century. Perhaps the most famous praise comes from Sigmund Freud, who declared the Brothers Karamazov to be the most magnificent novel ever written. For Freud, the book's Oedipal family drama was a perfect case study. James Joyce credited Dostoevsky as the man more than any other who has created modern prose, while Virginia Woolf found herself swept up in its seething whirlpools of raw psychological power. Friedrich Nietzsche called Dostoevsky a psychologist with whom I find common ground, seeing a kindred spirit in his exploration of the dark, irrational human depths. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus found the novel's agonizing confrontation with a silent God to be a foundational text of their philosophy. And then there is Albert Einstein, your physicist, a man not given to literary hyperbole, confessed his rapture, stating that he was in rapture about the Brothers Karamazov and that Dostoevsky gives me more than any scientist, more than Gauss. C.P. Snow recalled that Einstein considered it the supreme summit of all literature. The novel's influence even extended to the heavyweights of American literature. William Faulkner reread the Brothers Karamazov frequently, and Ernest Hemingway openly cited Dostoevsky as a major influence. This consensus from the West's most demanding intellectual figures is what cements the novel's reputation as a supreme achievement of fiction. When we shift our focus to a Russian context, the novel transforms from a work of art into an ideological battleground. Many Russian critics and readers approach the novel not for its prose style, but for its ideas, and they find Dostoevsky guilty of several national sins: political censorship and imperial propaganda. In its own time, the novel was considered so dangerous that the St. Petersburg Censorship Committee banned the Story of the Elder Zosima for its mystical social doctrine that threatened the state. However, modern critics charge Dostoevsky with the opposite sin, his ardent Russian messianism. Scholars argue that his spiritual vision of Russia's destiny portrays the country as a moral unifying force against a decaying West, an idea now co-opted by nationalist propaganda and Putin's ideology. Religious heresy versus fanaticism. The Russian Orthodox Church has never fully embraced Dostoevsky's version of Christianity. Church authorities have historically found his work to be heretical, disagreeing with the spirit of the teaching of the Orthodox faith. This has created a lasting tension. The book is considered too secular for the church, yet too religious for the secular intelligentsia. Anti-Semitism and chauvinism. The most uncomfortable truth about Dostoevsky is the virulent anti-Semitism and Russian chauvinism expressed in his non-fiction Diary of a Writer. For modern Russian readers, reconciling the humanist of the Brothers Karamazov with the bigot of the diary is often impossible. Polyphony as ambiguity. The celebrated polyphony of the novel, where no single voice is dominant, is seen by many Russians as a sign of Dostoevsky's failure to resolve the very questions he raises. Critics have long acknowledged that Ivan's atheistic arguments against God's creation are presented with equal, if not greater, force than Alyosha's, leading to a thesis novel whose thesis is impossible to pin down.
The animosity from Russian readers transcends simple ideological critique. It is often a visceral, stylistic rejection. Critics point to the book's slow pace and turgid, undisciplined prose. They complain that the characters feel less like people and more like ideas being forced upon them. Most famously, the Russian-American literary titan Vladimir Nabokov articulated this loathing with characteristic venom. He disliked Dostoevsky as artist and moralist, openly stating, "I dislike intensely the Karamazov brothers and the ghastly crime and punishment rigmarole." Nabokov's critique is the most powerful distillation of the Russian hate. It's not about the politics, but about the art itself, which he dismissed as a tedious and muddled search. However, there is a more subtle, often overlooked reason for the Russian reader's unease: Dostoevsky's habit of directly addressing his audience. Throughout the novel, the narrator frequently breaks the fourth wall with asides like, "But before I tell you this, I feel it necessary to explain," or "My readers might not need to know this, but..." For a Russian reader, this constant intrusion can feel like a psychological pull-away. Just as they are immersed in the drama of Dmitri's passion or Ivan's torment, the author tugs them back to the surface, reminding them they are reading a constructed narrative. While many Western critics praise this technique as a bold display of the narrator's personality, it can be experienced by the native audience as an interruption of the trance. Yet, paradoxically, this pull-away adds immense depth. It transforms the act of reading from passive absorption into an active, almost confrontational dialogue. The narrator's voice, with its colloquialisms and direct addresses, is intensely, unmistakably Russian. By constantly reminding the reader of this fact, Dostoevsky forces them to confront their own national identity. The novel is not just a story, it is a conversation with the Russian soul itself, and that conversation is often uncomfortable. It is this very discomfort, this inability to lose oneself entirely in the fiction, that drives the hate, but also fuels the novel's enduring, provocative power. And here is where I return to my own experience. When I finished the book, I had my own private opinion, admiration mixed with exhaustion, awe mingled with irritation at the novel's sprawl. But I had no idea that Einstein had placed it above Gauss. I had no idea that Nabokov had dismissed it as rigmarole. I had no idea that a significant portion of Russia itself regards the book with something close to hostility. That discovery, learning all of these takes after having read the book, fundamentally altered my relationship with it. The novel ceased to be a closed object between two covers and became a living battlefield. Every reread now carries the ghost of Freud nodding in approval and Nabokov sneering from the wings. Every passage about the Russian soul now echoes with the question, would a Russian reader hate this part? This, I believe, is the secret life of great literature. A book is not merely what it says, but what everyone else has said about it. To read the Brothers Karamazov without knowing its reception history is to read it naked, to read it with that history. The love, the loathing, the political charges, the aesthetic dismissals, is to read it in full dress, adorned with the scars of 100 years of argument. The hate for the Brothers Karamazov in Russia is not a sign of its failure, but a testament to its power. It is a book that, more than any other, cuts to the very core of a nation's fractured identity. The West can afford to admire its psychological depth. Russia must wrestle with it as a reflection of its own soul, its faith, its politics, and its morality. And the rest of us, caught in between, are left to decide for ourselves. Have you read The Brothers Karamazov? If yes, when did you first read it, and what did you think before you knew what anyone else thought? And what is your take now?
Do you side with Freud and Einstein, seeing it as the supreme summit of literature? Do you side with Nabokov, finding it a tedious, muddled rigmarole? Or, like me, did you finish the book in a private bubble of opinion, only to discover later that the whole world had been arguing about it without you? If you have not read it, let this essay be your invitation. Read it, then come back and tell me, did you feel the psychological pull-away? Did you sense why a Russian might wince? Or did you simply fall into its whirlpool, as Virginia Woolf did, and refuse to come up for air? The debate is open, the novel is waiting, and the best-written piece of fiction, it turns out, is the one that never stops asking you to argue back.